So, hello and welcome to the next episode of the Self Development with Tactics podcast. And today, as you can see, the old camera setup is here, and I've cut my hair, and there's a new microphone. Let's, talk about microphones, even if it's my smartphone, because the thing is, the better video quality is not available right now. But the audio quality should be way better, and especially for the podcast listeners, that's really, really good. And so for all the YouTube watchers, I'm a little bit sorry, but you can understand me as well, and you can see me as well, and so everything should be fine. And as you can see, we are going to talk about again about the Money Master the Game summary from Tony Robbins. And the thing is, there isn't much in it for me, but there may be a lot for you. And so therefore I'm going to read it anyways. So in Tony's piece de Résistance or something, I do not speak French accordingly, comes here. A peek into the portfolio allocation of Ray Dalio, who is possibly the greatest investor in history. Ray isn't talking new investors right now, and when he was, you needed a minimum of 100 million to invest with him and get access to his knowledge. Tony got it for free and included it in the book, which is pretty cool. A core belief underlying this allocation is that market prices reflect all known information, at least to the extent that normal people would be able to tell. As a result, the only way prices move is when there is a surprise. The only way, or the only two ways, that overall market prices move are unexpected inflation or deflation and economic growth. Overall, market prices are what matters if you're probably diversified within each asset category. It's easier to visualize with this chart. And I'm going to explain this chart. It's only a picture, not really a chart, but I'll explain it for the podcast listeners. So there's one growth and one inflation box, and one rising and one falling box. So you just see it as a table. Higher than expected economic growth is rising and growth, and higher than expected inflation is rising and also in terms of inflation. Then falling is lower than expected economic growth, and falling and inflation is lower than expected inflation. Tony and Ray were also good enough to include a chart showing which types of investments do well with or when each kind of surprise happens. So it's in terms of surprises, which means is that a surprise in growth and a surprise in inflation. Yeah. Which then means, you know what it means. Which means that on the rising and growth part, so in the left top hand, stocks, corporate bonds, commodities, and gold. On the right, which is then in the rising section on inflation, is commodities, gold, inflation-linked bonds, in brackets tips, and in the top or in the bottom left corner is treasury bonds, inflation-linked, and bonds in brackets tips. On the right bottom side is treasury bonds and stocks. The point of portfolio diversification is to be invested in different assets classes so that when one class drops, the other class rises, and your investment is protected, which seems to be a good idea. You're just it doesn't matter what happens, you're always in the plus, which seems to be a really good idea, actually. So let's see. Most people, including most financial professionals, use the allocation of about 50% stocks and 50% bonds as a benchmark for their allocation. There is also typically a small portion a small portion, allocated to US treasuries, gold, and other so-called low-risk investments. The allocation of stocks versus bonds is supposed to be weighted more in favor of stocks if you want more risk and more return, and weighted more in favor of bonds if you want less risk, such as when you are nearing retirement. And this is something I was talking about, I think, not the last episode, but the episode before, or the episode before, you know what I mean. In the top part of this article, he was talking about these kind of investments that really grow with your age, which means that, on the first few years when you're young, there's a high risk, which means then a lot of stocks. And, the older you get, the more bonds you get instead of stocks, and you change it up so that you're safe all the time. But let's see. This widely accepted approach operates on the two mistaken assumptions discussed in section 2, which I think I was referring right then. That bonds are safer than stocks, and that bonds and stocks move in opposite directions. As you can see in the chart above, it is a bit more complex than that. So bonds are safer than stocks, and bonds and stocks move in opposite directions. Which should you know by now, because in the part just before that, they're talking about buying bonds if you're near the retirement, so you have to be a little bit safer with your money, and buying stocks if you want more risk and or more return, which visualizes the opposition or the opposite direction moves they are taking. Here is where things get difficult to follow if you're not a finance expert, so you might have to read the next paragraph twice. When you diversify your investment portfolio, the point is to diversify your risk, which in the context of investment is just another word for variability. Different asset classes, stocks and bonds for example, have different levels of variability. Therefore, since stocks are riskier, more variable than bonds, if you want a balanced portfolio where your risk is equal on both sides, you have to have more bonds than stocks. It is the risk you are balancing, not the assets attached to the risk. If you follow this logic, you will understand that the traditional method of allocation by percentages of assets rather than risks is completely nonsensical. Its measuring applies in order to find out how many oranges you need. Yeah. When you match the direction each asset class moves in each type of market situation with the relative risk and or variability of each of those asset classes, you get a portfolio courtesy of Ray Dalio that looks more like this. And so there's also another graph. And so I really suggest you, if you're just listening to the podcast, let's see in the podcast description, and there should be a link to my YouTube channel, and which then has to be the latest episode. So I just uploaded at the same time, and so you can be sure. And there are also some kind of not differently titled, but not the same either, but some kind of between. And so you have then 7.5% gold, 30% stocks, 50% US bonds, intermediate bonds, 40% long-term US bonds, and 7.5% commodities. With this portfolio over the past 30 years, you would have solidly beat the market. 9.72% annual return net of fees, and the worst annual loss you would have seen was 3.93% in 2008, when the market was down 37%. You would have only lost money in 4 of those 30 years. The 30-year period is most relevant, but if you want to go back 75 years, only 10 years were losing years, and your worst loss is still the 3.93%. In contrast, the market was negative 18 times, and the largest loss was 33.3%. By structuring a portfolio the right way, you have done the impossible by consistently beating the market in both risk and return. You can adjust the portfolio to fit your own needs, but there is no better benchmark. After dropping that bombshell, Tony goes on to point out that growing your investments is only half the battle. You will need to know what to do going down the mountain. When you've grown your assets sufficiently to attain the lifestyle you want, and it's time to simultaneously preserve and enjoy what you have, traditional low-risk investments like treasuries and CDS, or CDs, it's ZD and a small s, are horrible ways to protect your capital due to abysmally low returns. On top of that, it's highly likely that advances in medicine will soon increase your expected lifespan far beyond the 80-year mark, meaning that the old math of a 13 or 15-year retirement won't work. For more on the likelihood of sustainably increased lifespans in the near future, read The Fantastic Voyage by Ray Kurzweil and Ending Aging by Aubrey de Grey. Yes, so The Fantastic Voyage and Ending Aging, which seems to be two other book summaries he did, and therefore books. If you're interested in them, go on the deconstructionexcellence.com website and read through the summary. But we will move on here. For these reasons, Tony loves fixed indexed annuities, which provide complete protection of your capital, no downside, with the ability to also enjoy market gains. Complete protection really does mean complete protection. In the US, each state has FDIC-style protection for insurance companies, ranging from $300,000 to $500,000. If your insurance company goes bust, the state will guarantee your capital. This is incredibly rare, by the way. While 140 banks went under in 2009 alone, not a single insurance company closed its doors. Unless there is a zombie apocalypse, you're safe. FIAs also give you no tax on the growth of your capital, a guaranteed lifetime income stream, tax-free withdrawals, and zero management fees. Make sure to use an advisor who knows how to structure the FIA correctly and add the proper riders to get all these benefits. Tony also touches on private placement life insurance, which is PPLI, which allows unlimited deposits, no tax, and the growth of your capital, no tax on withdrawals, and no inheritance tax. Basically, you're using an insurance policy to shield your capital, then taking free loans out of the policy whenever you want without having to pay them back. This is nothing like regular life insurance, which is almost always a bad investment. The catch is that PPLI can only be purchased accredited investors, which means 200,000 annual income or 1 million net worth. But TIAA CREF has a version of PPLI that anyone can access. Tony refers us to TIAA CREF's or Strongholds Financial's website to take advantage of this tool. And so we are also here on the sixth section of the summary, which is invest like the 0.001% the billionaire's playbook. Because Tony wrote this book based on the interviews in this section, there isn't much specific new information here. However, given that the people interviewed are the top names in investing, it might be worth getting the book just to read through the interviews and understand their perspectives. And it's always very interesting how these rich peoples and millionaires and billionaires are thinking and what perspective they have. Most of the time they just think differently about things than we. so that you can see me. I'm sorry if this was a little bit dark here inside, but everything should be good. So, and the seventh and last section is just do it, enjoy it, and share it. Tony steps away from the focus on money to wrap up the book by revisiting how money is just a part of a good life. The 3 decisions of what you focus on, what your life means, and what you're going to do will shape your life, and money is simply an enabler of focus, meaning, and action, which is totally true. Without money, you can probably do nothing, besides being very kind. I was just thinking about, traveling. You could especially or actually travel without money just by, letting other people drive you, and therefore you have to be very kind or charismatic or maybe good looking. But money allows you to invest in experiences, buy time for yourself, and give to others. Using money for growth and contribution will give you a happier and healthier life. And I'll this time read the conclusion of the author of this summary, which is: most of the contents of this book have been said elsewhere before, but Tony's contribution is invaluable in calling out truths that are regularly forgotten by the professionals and misunderstood by the general public. It's 600 plus pages. I didn't know that it was so long. Do contain quite a lot of motivational fluff, but coming from the master of motivation himself, maybe it's worth the time. Either way, this book is the best guide to investing in the public markets that I've seen. And for now, we are actually going to see if we can find another book. This is a little trick. On this page, there are only 2 pages of the summaries he did. And on the top URL, you can just type in the 3rd page, which should take me to the actual 3rd page if it's working. I don't know, and it doesn't work. But let's see in the book database. But normally this small kind of trick works. The thing is, oh my god, I don't want that. The thing is, no, the site is a little bit not that good. But the thing is, I found another website, Business Book Summaries, with also a lot of great summaries, and they seem to be good as well. And so it's samuelthomasdavis.com, everything written together, which is a quite interesting URL or domain for a website. But let's see. I'll just pick leadership book summaries, philosophical book summaries. There are actually some things like categories, best book summaries, how to read more, how to remember what you read, how to become a better thinker. Business book summaries, let's say business books, because often they are just very good. And I'll see how long I make it. It's only 18 minutes in. The 7-day startup, you may have heard about this, but I don't know. Anything you want, 40 lessons for a new kind of entrepreneur by Derek Silvers. The Art of Work, Build to Sell, Create or Hate, Deep Work, The Dip, and Do the Work, Drive, The Ego is the Enemy. I scroll a little, 1, 2, 3, and then I take the best, which they put it. I have to cover this on this channel because it's such a great book. It was actually the first book or the first business book I've read, or better said, listened to. Because you can actually listen to it on Spotify and Deezer for free. The Obstacle is the Way, Timeless Art of Turning Trials into Triumph. You can actually listen to it for free. It may take you around, 5 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours maybe. positioning, we will go through this. Positioning, the battle, um, um, the battle for your mind. What is positioning? Positioning is what you do to the mind of the prospect. But another way, it's how you differentiate yourself in the mind of your prospect. Which often is, in terms of marketing, positioning, as I know by now, or think I know by now, is, for example, you have a product, let's say a car, and you really want to be this luxury car owner or brand. Then you might sell them for more money and have more luxurious interiors and wheels, and I don't know, this. And you can position through prices eventually, because of the book from Seth Godin, which is his 2018 book. He talks about the price not being really some index of a good product, but rather marketing and positioning your product. And therefore, you can use, for example, your car, make it more expensive, and therefore it's a luxurious car, and all the other people think, or your prospects, as he says or they say, are thinking that it is a luxurious car. This is my assumption. So take it with a grain of salt. I do not have that much experience. I do not know that much, and therefore I'm going through summaries with you. I'm on your level. Maybe I'm, a little bit higher, a little bit lower than you are in your life right now. But let's see, the positioning summary. And he actually does it with chapters and then an overall summary. So it's pretty good as well. So I have to say it again, it's www.samuelthomasdavis.com. Chapter 1. What positioning is all about. Positioning is not about creating something new and different, it's about manipulating what's already in the prospect's mind. It's about bridging the connection that already exists. The mind is a defense against the value or volume of today's communications screens and rejects much of the information offered it. In general, the mind accepts only that which matches prior knowledge or experience, which is a pity, and I've seen it with all these summaries I've been going through lately, that I only know these things I then, while I was going through these summaries, thought about using and how I could using them, which is, a little bit sad. But yeah, once a mind is made up, it's almost impossible to change it. Trying to change the prospect's mind is an advertising disaster. The best approach to take in our over-communicated society is the oversimplified message. You have to sharpen your message to cut into the mind. You have to jettison the ambiguities, simplify the message, and then simplify it some more if you want to make a long-lasting impression. Once you own a word in mind, you have to use it or lose it. And I think, especially the part which is once a mind is made up, it's almost impossible to change it. Which remembers me on something I think read in How to Win Friends and Influence People from Dale Carnegie, one of my lovely books I'm talking just quite any episode about, that actually you shouldn't really, or was it? I don't remember, but nevertheless, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is a very, very great book. Maybe even the best I've ever read, because there's so much practical advice in it, practical tips, and something you can already use or use just after you have just read this. But if somebody, you can't really change somebody's mind, and you can't really let somebody think or be as empathetic or motivated about something as you are. It's just not possible. For example, it's actually something Gary Vee was talking about. He was talking about in terms of business. If you have a business idea and you want somebody to work with you, they will not be as motivated as you are about your business idea because it's your idea. And, they might be a little bit, emphasizing with you or sympathizing with you, and they may like your idea, but they will not be as hyped as you are. So trying to change some people's mind is maybe not, that good because it won't happen. When you want to communicate the advantages of a political candidate or a product or even yourself, you must turn things inside out. You look for a solution to your problem, not inside the product, not even inside your own mind. You look for the solution in your problems inside the prospect's mind. The essence of positioning thinking is to accept the perceptions as reality and then restructure those perceptions to create the position you desire. The author calls this process outside-in thinking, which is interesting and seems to work. If people just think about, so they have an opinion and they have made up their minds, and by reconstructing, it's just difficult to explain what I mean or what they mean. I know what they mean, but it's some sort of difficult. When you want to communicate the advantages of political candidate or a product or even yourself, you must turn things inside out. You look for the solution to your problem, not inside the product, not even inside your mind. You look for the solution to your problem inside the prospect's mind. So, how the people are thinking about your products. And if you can change how they think about your product, it's better than it was before. If everybody thinks that Coca-Cola is healthy, I think more of them would actually drink it. If that's a good example, I don't know. Chapter 2, the assault on the mind. Another reason your message keep getting lost in the number of media we have invented to serve our communication needs. Another reason our messages keep getting lost is the number of media we have invented to serve our communication needs. That's actually true. There's such a lot of Instagram profiles with so much content, with maybe the same content as you have. It's especially in my position where a lot of people just have, the same kind, maybe not really the same, but kind of. And, if you are the first one to make this, you will probably win. Because, people just see that you're doing this and they follow you. And then somebody else comes and they might be like, this guy is already doing it and I'm following him. And why should I follow you then? But it wasn't actually what I wanted to say. It's very hard because there is so much other people who are doing quite the same as I am. And so it's very hard for me to gain traction. But chapter 3, getting into the mind. Positioning is an organized system for finding windows in the mind. It is based on the concept that communication can only take place at the right time under the right circumstances. The easy way to get into a person's mind is to be first. What I was talking about. It's better to be first than it's to be better. It's by far the most powerful positioning idea. If you want to be successful in love or in business, you must appreciate the importance of getting into the mind first. If you didn't get into the mind of your prospect first, personally or politically or corporately, then you have a positioning problem. If you can't be first in a category, then set up a new category you can be first in. Is the second most powerful positioning idea. It's actually something Russell So the maker of ClickFunnels was talking about if you have chosen your niche and your niche is, bad because there are such a lot of people in it, you just make another niche, your own one. And so then you are the first one. If you can't be first, so this was something I've already read, to succeed in our over-communicated society, you must create a position in the prospect's mind. A position that takes into consideration not only a company's own strengths and weaknesses, but those of its competitors as well. Don't give your brand a generic name. And for that, I have to say goodbye, and I wish you a very good day. See you the next time.